Hey guys, and welcome to the Animal Training Academy podcast show. I'm your host, Ryan Cartledge, and I'm really excited that you have decided to take time out of your busy schedules to come and hang out today. We're really grateful for you tuning in. And if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, we really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Hopefully you have subscribed so that you never miss an episode. But if not, or if you are new to the show, get yourself over to iTunes, Stitcher, animaltrainingacademy.com, or whatever it is you're listening to this podcast on, and hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We are bringing you today's episode on behalf of the Animal Training Academy, or ATA membership. If you like the conversations in these podcasts, then I want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people within the ATA membership area, which you can find out more about over on the ATA website. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalogue of previous web classes, plus a huge library of videos and projects to problem solve different training situations. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group, forums area, and WhatsApp chat groups. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behaviour nerds. But we will get started on today's episode where we will be talking to one Peta Clarke. Peta Clarke lives and breathes the animals she works with over 25 years experience working as a professional animal trainer in a variety of settings, both in Australia and America. She has immersed herself during that time in the practical and theoretical application of reinforcement training in the care of literally thousands of animals. While all trainers have their favourite animals and even breeds, Peta urges us to step outside our comfort zone and work with as many different species as we can. Peta says only when you train animals that push you past your boundaries will you really continue to learn and grow as a trainer, and more importantly than anything else, really learn to trust the science. So without further ado, it's my very great pleasure to welcome one Peta Clarke to the show today, who is patiently waiting by. Peta, how are you?
I am well, Ryan, and I'm so pleased to be here. I'm loving my earphones that no one can see, which is good because it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, but they're keeping my ears warm. So
nice.
Yeah, it's freezing here on this day in Sydney, Australia, 2018, so everything's good.
Well, we appreciate you getting up so you can enjoy a coffee there while we do this.
Yes.
And keep your ears warm. We're both rocking very stylish looking headphones today, and probably quite appreciative that no one can see us.
I know. I did check that, everybody, with Ryan when we first came on. It was like, this isn't video, is it? It's not going out to the world, is it? So Ryan and I are safe.
No, I got these $25 from Kmart, and they've been a really sound pair of headphones.
Yeah, awesome. My kind of headphones.
Hey, just before we do get going, Peta, like I said, thank you very much for making time, not just today to come on, but I know you and I connected about a month ago, and so, or maybe not even now, I can't really remember, but you took time out of your day then, you're taking time out of your day now, and you've been shooting messages back and forth, so thank you very much for all the time and effort.
Pleasure, and you know, kudos to you, kiddo. Like, this is just a fantastic community that you have put together. I can't believe that I get to like come on and reap the benefits for as kind of a, you know, like sleuthy little person here. I'm learning so much. I'm loving how people are with each other, you know, on the Facebook page, and just the way you deal with people here. It's phenomenal. So yeah, hats off to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have been hoping to produce this episode for a long time now. Your name has been mentioned on the podcast before.
I just, you know, there's value in anticipation, Ryan. That's all I can say.
I have faith that if I set my mind on something, it will happen sooner or later. And
here we are.
Just letting the galaxy take over and do its thing, and here we are.
Amen.
Hey, we're going to dive straight into the first question today, Peta. Could you please take us back to where you got started, where you first learned about positive reinforcement animal training, and share some stories from that early time and some of the first animals you ever trained?
It's probably a fantastic question question to start with for those of us who have been around the tracks a few times, because as I was heading off to bed last night, the questions were in my head, and I'm thinking, and I've obviously listened to many of the podcasts and the people that you've interviewed, and it's like, well, mine's kind of different, and my answer is not as exciting as a lot of the ones that have come forward, but it ain't no competition. So yeah, I'm in a situation where I was never really interested in animal training as a kid or even sort of as a young adult, and I was interested in getting another dog, and the dog that I had at the time, a Dalmatian, I believed, my interpretation was that she was aggressive to other dogs, and nothing could have been further from the truth. And the lucky thing for me at that time was a lady called Vicky Austin was then living in Barara, just around the corner from me, and as luck would have it, I touched bases with her, and Vicky at that time had a fantastic history of success in the obedience ring with traditional training, but she'd just acquired a couple of books and had been hearing some things about positive reinforcement training, and so we talked about like the two options that I had if I wanted to learn about this new way that she was still learning about herself, or if I wanted to, go the traditional way. And the thing about me is that I had, unbeknownst to me, done a lot of learning about practical animal training, or the theory of animal training at university, but it was in the guise of human learning and specifically child education. So we met, and we took off both our minds meeting, me with some information about like what I'd learned at university, and Vicky with her incredible knowledge of and experience with dogs. And so when I think about the picture that comes into my head when you say my first sort of experience with positive reinforcement training in a practical setting was being up at my local school with my Dalmatian, who luckily enough was not aggressive, and was also a huge pig. And so I remember being up at that school as the sun set, at Barara Public School. I was out on the oval probably for the 229th time, trying to manipulate Grace from the front position around into a heel position with probably a bit of cabanossi or a bit of cheese or something like that. It was just truly a total belief and understanding in the science way back then, although it was a very limited understanding, I must admit. That was my real first experience. So I think I was lucky. I think dogs are a fantastic species to learn on. They're so forgiving. They're so they come with that gorgeous love. Probably so many people cringing when I say that word, but let me phrase it this way: domestication, and that sort of built-in trust, where many of the animals that you and I have worked with also you don't have that, so you have to work at that. So yeah, that's the picture that I paint for everybody. Just continuing to try and work out how to help this dog, who was very happy for that 229th bit of cabanossi to be thrust into her face, luring her around into that heel position to communicate that was where you were going to, ultimately get that food.
And so with your non-aggressive big pig Dalmatian,
that's it.
You didn't give me a name, so we're just going to go with non-aggressive.
Her name
big
was
pig.
Grace. Her name was Grace. God, she was a ripper.
So you had Grace, and you had your limited understanding, you said, based upon what you learned about humans.
Well, it's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's not limited in the practical sense with animals, but not limited in the theoretical sense, but limited in that practical sense, because obviously there's a huge distinction there. We can read all of the books and get all of the high distinctions and all of the information, but until we get our hands dirty, I like to say, and feel what it's like to try and communicate with another species, or indeed another human being, like half the time, it's. I don't want to say it's that information is useless, but it is. We as practical animal trainers, everyone listening, need to practically experience how to put that theory into action and into play.
And that's where your journey started. And so am I correct that you didn't ever go down the traditional route?
I never did. And I used to say I was lucky, but that I didn't have that experience. But I think probably the better way to say it was dogs were lucky, because, it's not, it just is, it's one of those things that I look at people who have had that experience and have, crossed over trainers, not crossed over, I just have another swig of coffee. I think that contrast in technique is a wonderful thing for people to experience. I don't ever have the experience that people have that in at least the dog world, worked with their check chains and they're pushing the bum up and pulling the head up, pushing the bum down and pulling the head up to get a sit and that kind of thing. And I really think that that experience is really valuable. Not saying to everybody to go out and try it, but life takes you where it wants to take you, right? And if that has been your history, that's nothing to be embarrassed about or feel guilty about. We all, every single one of us does what we do at the time, and we believe it's the best. And if we're talking about animals, for the animals that are in front of us and in our care. So, and that's all we ever can do. I'm an immensely better trainer than I was 20 years ago, of course. So are you. So is everybody listening 2 years ago. And that's how it should be, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't try 20 years ago, because it's that whole journey thing, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, really glad that you put that out there, because a lot of the podcast guests
That's Ryan's dog, not mine, FYI, everybody.
Phoebe.
Haha.
Good catch.
Thank you.
Phoebe wants to be on the podcast this morning, seemingly, and also communicate out to me and Peter about what's going on outside. So
good dog.
We'll non-contingently reinforce her for.
And gorgeous Ryan. Let me just tell everybody that gorgeous Ryan. If the camera on the computer could just dip down, we would see a plethora of try hard attempts to keep Phoebe quiet. What have we got? Pig's ears, cow hooves, everything under the sun. But she's saying, the fact of the matter is, Dad, you have conditioned me to understand that this is the time of the day where we normally get on our shoesies and go for a little walk. So there you go. Told you, anticipation, training, anticipation.
She also knows that non-contingent reinforcement's available at the moment.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm focused.
I can imagine that the headsets going on would be like, antecedent setup, thank you.
Green light for reinforcement, here I come.
Yeah, right. Oh, man, I love them so much. They just, and that's the thing, isn't it? There we are. There's learning for us. It's happening every moment, every day for these animals. They are unconsciously, of course, adjusting their behaviour depending on what their environment, there you go, environment tells them is the green light for particular behaviours that'll be reinforced, There she goes.
Normally we'll edit this out, but I think it's so fitting to the conversation that we're having. So
I do too, because this is real life, and I'm sitting here, everybody, watching Ryan, and he's, Phoebe's come back here and this and that, and, he's trying to be a fantastic podcast interviewer and get this great professional piece out to you. But what I'm seeing is him trying to deal with that as this is going on. And I agree. I mean, he might edit it out, he might not, but this is where learning happens for me as a trainer. When I put food in my bait bag and I head out to a training class, or I shut the door in the training room and I'm in there, I'm working on my skill and I'm communicating but to the animal about some particular behaviour. We all do that, but it's so easy for even us, for us seasoned pros, to forget that door opens. Training and learning doesn't stop for the animal in question, right? The environment is continuing to throw and set up antecedents at the animal to say what's the options as opposed to behaviours that are going to earn reinforcement here. So it's every single one of our lives, and it's so easy to forget that. Ryan's doing some training now. I'm seeing it all live here. His microphone's off. God love him. God love him. But I think that's the thing, it was interesting listening to the bio, and I've been so blessed to be able to work with so many different animals. I have been very lucky, and not only for the experience, of course, but the experience from the point of not being able to say I've trained a tiger and I've trained an elephant, I've trained an eagle, but from my learning and how I've seen time and time again that as long as I trust the science and as long as I think about the antecedents, the behaviour in question that we're looking at and the consequences, I'm in a situation where even if I don't really have much of an understanding of that animal's natural history or that animal's individual history, as long as I've got someone who does, so someone who's, really knows the elephant well and really knows elephants well, I can really be an aid to those trainers to help them see it from that applied behavioural analysis perspective. So those ABCs are where they're at. And again, those ABCs don't stop when he's pumping the air. When those ABCs don't stop when we stop thinking about them, basically. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Lots of different species and trying to tattoo somewhere in your hippocampus, I think. Is that the bit that does memory? Oh, all the neuroscientists are rolling their eyes out there. In your brain, let's just say that. That sounds better. That it's always ABC. It's always ABC. It's always ABC. Thank you, Susan Friedman.
So good. So good. I love it. The ABCs don't stop when we stop thinking.
Thinking of them, yeah, that's right. Learning is always going on. Training might not be from our perspective, but learning is. So you may as well just think training all the time because the dog is, right? As Phoebe so beautifully showed us right there.
So I remember as a keen young bean, what do they say? Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, going to Taronga Zoo and having absolutely feeling very special because someone was paying attention to me as a young trainer and they'd set me up and I had access to the free flight bird show there at Taronga and I went backstage and I met Nick Bishop. And Nick Bishop introduced me to you. And I remember standing there having a yarn of you guys just being like, oh, my God, this is so amazing. So fill that gap in between. So that was 2010, I think.
Yeah, that'd be right. Yes, would it be right? Yes, that'd be about right. Yes. So from dogs to now we're talking about free flight birds. I'm a funny thing, and I guess like a lot of your listeners out there, as you say, like we're all nerds, and that's what I mean when I'm a funny thing. Like I just got bitten by the power of this and the enormity of it. Although I think back then at the school with my 229th bit of Cabanossi, I didn't realise the enormity. But yeah, so one of the things that I, before the zoo, I was lucky enough to do was some film work and actually go back. It was before the film work that I actually went into Taronga, and you talk about bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. How about this? I actually, my first experience with that bird show at Taronga Zoo was with a hard hat on, being taken down by the then manager of marine mammals, Mr. Andrew Irvine, after this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, innocent youngster had rung up because she had a boxer puppy and was interested in finding out more about positive reinforcement. And that was back in the day when they said, yeah, come on in, no problem. So, I went, we've all been bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at one stage, haven't we? And spoke to Andrew about how they use reinforcement training with the seals. And he just happened to say, if you're interested in all of this, did you know that they're setting up a free flight bird show here? And there's a man over from America called Steve Martin who trains free flight birds, and I'm like, what the? I'd never heard of such a thing. So talk about right place, right time. Off I went. There was no seats. They were still gouging out the sandstone for the seats in the amphitheatre there, And I got to watch Matthew Kettle, my dear, beautiful manager for all of those years. I don't know how he put up with me. Matt Kettle, and I think it was Steve, Eric from America, do some work with a barking owl, which I'd never seen or heard of at the time, called, I think it was Wing Chun. So you know, it's life takes you. You pull up your oars and you get interested in something, and life powers you along, the universe, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I ended up going and working for Steve, just as an internship at Disney's Animal Kingdom. You know, this is someone who was interested in learning how to train dogs better, right? Dogs. So, but I knew instinctively, you know, because I had my introduction was the science, and then I sort of like, oh, we could do this stuff with animals. I was always very aware of the fact that this was a universal understanding of you know, the basics of how behaviours grow, how they maintain, and how we die them. So I was never sort of betwixt about. I'd never trained a bird before. I'd never. So I got an exposure to lots of different birds over there that I had never heard of before. That's where I fell in love with birds, at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and subsequently came back and got work at Taronga for many years at the bird show, which just was a joy, an absolute joy. Not only do you get to work and train animals for a living, but you get to share your passion with people who come and see the show, you know. And so it was just this most gorgeous thing, passion about birds, passion about animals, and in my case, passion about training, and that, hey, you can train your dog like this, you know, you can do it. It's just, you know, just we use sunflower seed, go get a bit of cabanossi or whatever. It was just such a joy, and so much learning there, because birds are very different from dogs, FYI, in terms of their awareness of the environment, and their, especially parrots, you know, prey species. Hey, like, you know, what do you reckon? I'm going to fly up there and get $1 coin when way up there where you can't even see it because you're stupid human with stupid human eyes. You can't see the, you know, hawk or the peregrine that's flying past. You know, it taught me so much about sensitivity to the individual that you've got in front of you, and how they see the world. You know, we talk about the ABCs, we just talked about them then, but we have to really, the ABCs are the animals' ABCs, you know, the animals' antecedents. You know, just because we can't see that peregrine way up in the sky, it's very relevant to that said cockatoo that you've just asked to fly up and get $1 coin. And quite frankly, no sensible parrot is going to fly in an open area when there's a peregrine way up high, you know. So just that whole thing, I loved that opportunity, because it continued to really strengthen in me the thought that if the animal doesn't do it, what am I doing wrong? Why aren't you doing it? Not in terms of your stubborn soul, but in terms of what is making you uncomfortable here, because I know that this is a behaviour that you understand. I've cued it. Everything that I can see is right. Let me look around and see what the environment is telling you, because there's something that I'm missing. And my God, that taught me to trust the animal in my care. Now, sometimes it's going to be, I don't understand you. What the hell are you talking about here? Like, you know, I've done the cue wrong, or I've, you know, given it with my left hand instead of my right hand, or whatever it happens to be. But again, that allows me to go, what am I doing that's not communicating clearly to you, my dear soul, and let me help you. And then if the animal is just saying, no, thank you, then I've got a gorgeous opportunity to take that animal away from the training area, and to reassess my training up to that date to say, what now do I need to do to help you in this situation next time to be successful. And you know as well as I do, those opportunities that we were so lucky to have with those free flight birds and other taxa help us incredibly with the dogs at our feet. You know, they really, really do. So, yeah, we're so lucky. Did I answer the question?
Doesn't matter.
Somewhere.
It tied in beautifully to your intro about the importance of working with different species.
Right.
So bring us up to speed now. What are you spending most of your time doing now, Peter? And we'll use this opportunity as well as you answer that question to tell people where they can go to find out what you're up to now and get in contact with you.
Yep. I'm so lucky, and I've always dabbled in film work for animals, and I'm kind of lucky at the moment as I sit and look ahead for the next 2 years. We've just finished a film called Top End Wedding, and that's why I'm extra cold, because it's only been, I think, 2 or 3 weeks that I've been home, and I've been in Darwin for, the last 3 months or so, swimming in the pool and going to the Tiwi Islands and just having a gorgeous time in T-shirt and shorts. But I'm really lucky to have an opportunity, it looks like, over the next couple of years to work on some fantastic films, as obviously an animal trainer, wrangler, whatever you want to call, so many different words for us, but really trainer is the true label, and that's fantastic for me, because there's a lot of how do I say this? There's a lot of people who are working in the industry, the film industry, who who offer animals as for productions, both film and TV commercials and series and that, who subsequently have just sort of fallen into it. They might have been out of work. There mightn't have been much work for props, and they just happened to have a staffy, and their mates were working on a production that had a staffy, and so they say, your staffy's good, just bring him along, and that dog just didn't have to do much, just hang around. He's a comfortable, confident dog on set because he's been around sets before, been to work with his person, and subsequently they get in the industry a bit of a name for being an animal trainer. But then when they need to provide animals that have training on them, it can sometimes lead down that sticky road of what pretty much everybody, in absence of really good teaching, does, and that is, a bit of force and a bit of push and pull and that kind of stuff. So focusing on the punishment, do this or else, you stay there or else, as opposed to how can I make you want to stay there and that kind of thing. And I'm not judging anybody. It's just, the way that it goes. And so often, I'm sure everybody out there who works as a dog trainer has had the experience of going to see a client or hearing someone give advice to someone on a dog behaviour problem because they had a shepherd once, and so that gives them, they feel like they've got the experience to give advice. So it's sort of the same thing. So I'm really pleased to sort of be in this position to show the Australian film industry that what good training is and what you can get from animals that are well trained and well prepped. And when I talk about training, like so many of the folk that are listening, we know that the behaviour that we're after, the open mouth on a sun bear, the sit stay on a dog on set, the speak of a dog on set, the flight of a macaw from one hand to a trainer's hand to another, that's the easy part. The hard part for us, or the focus part, should always be on how that animal feels in the setting that we're asking it to perform. And I use that perform to mean do the behaviour that we're asking it to do. So, the sun bear that has been trained to open up its mouth for a teeth injection, that's a hefty behaviour to have under your belt to train. But, you're not going to get anywhere near that if the animal is not confident and comfortable with you to start with, to the electric toothbrush, the sound of it, if you are using an electric toothbrush, or even the feeling of the toothbrush or the look of the toothbrush if you're just using a normal toothbrush. So that set of emotional, the emotional foundation is so important for every single one of us out there. And that's, I think, one of the things that we all join in when we talk about we're positive reinforcement trainers, that we want the animal to want to join in. We want the animal to love doing this. We want the animal to be involved by choice rather than by coercion. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I'm the only one out there doing it well in the industry. There are some great trainers out there, but I really want to showcase to those folk that and to everybody that just because an animal's been used in a movie or a TV show, it doesn't mean that this animal has been pushed and pulled and forced. There's animals out there that love going to work. Many years ago, I did a musical with these two chihuahuas that ended up in my heart. I don't know how that happened, because just so everybody knows, I am a big dog person, just so you know. But I own chihuahuas, or am owned by chihuahuas. We share a house, and there's a bit of video that I've got, which we might put up on the Facebook page, where I've got little Sparrow, who is 2 kilograms, 2.5 now. Sparrow, sorry, it's your it's your weight that you are at the moment. It's your winter weight.
It's your training weight.
Yeah, where he's waiting to go out on stage. So he's in the wings, and he's waiting to go out on stage to perform one of the scenes in the show. And that dog, his tail is just going 9 times to the dozen, and he's looking, and I'm saying to him, is that Lucy? Is that? Oh, that's not her. Is that her? Because he's waiting for the person who's playing Elle to come and get him. And there's that little dog who's done it so many times, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And when they go into the theatre, they're like, oh, I can't believe we're in the theatre. And that was just so easily done, obviously by training up the behaviour, before we got anywhere near it. But their theatre experience is Peta Clarke, their gorgeous mother, seems to only have kibble when we're in this environment. So if you want the good stuff, if you want that bit of dried chicken or beef, you got to go on stage. So the opportunity that I had to so easily say to him, you love this, don't you? You want that bit of chook? You get to go on stage, and the world's your oyster. And that bit of video where he's just going, oh my goodness, it's so, can I do it now? And the anticipation that he's building. And as Susan Friedman so beautifully pointed out when she showed it at the APDT conference, Association of Professional Dog Trainers in Australia last year, she's saying to everybody, see how Peter's using motivating operators? And I'm like, am I? Okay, better write that one down. It's so funny. But that's what you can get. Just because the animal's being used as entertainment rather than education, it still should be that the animal's like, brush my teeth now. Oh, we gotta brush my teeth, or let me go out and go to that lady and jump in that bag. Yippee! And it's fantastic and it's wonderful. That's the thing for us, right? That we have the power and that we can. And yes, sometimes it's pretty bloody slow, but if we trust the science, slowly but surely getting that animal to a place where it goes, oh God, we get to train. Hallelujah, So I'm doing a lot of movie work coming up. Which is fantastic, as I said. Get to see Australia, get to work with animals, get to show people who don't know just how amazing what we can do with animals when we know what we're doing with the science. And I'm also loving to death this new sport or activity that I've been doing and learning about for probably about the past 6 years now, that we call canine nose work. It's an interesting thing, right? Because here we are, you and I have worked in zoos with many different species, and we've helped other people understand the behaviour of their particular species that they work with. And we know that animals in captivity, and when we say that, animals in captivity, everyone automatically thinks of zoos. But I'm here to say that by and large, the dogs in your backyards are animals in captivity. They are animals that have a predetermined behavioural repertoire that is set for them as a species, and then with breeds, obviously, we get into specifics there. And by that label, an animal in captivity, we have to provide. It's our duty to provide them with species-specific enrichment. And that word enrichment is very, very commonly used in zoos, right? We know, chuck out the boomer ball. We're getting so much more savvy than that. But all of that to allow that animal to do what nature or God, whatever is your preference, intended that animal to do. And we know that when we don't provide that, the proverbial can hit the fan for that animal, and we see behavior problems, lethargy, overweight, so many things. And it's the same with dogs. Those dogs in your backyard or in your bed or in your drawer, as the case may be, wrapped up next to me, it's a Chihuahua, is as captive but as needy as in what we need to give its brain to do as that lion or that tiger or that elephant. And so canine nosework was developed over in America, and basically it is an enrichment. It is it has become a competition, but classes are basically set up from the get-go to provide your dog with an opportunity in a safe environment to use its nose and to develop its ability to hunt. And those two things sound all lovely, and that's good for the dog. But when you see dogs that come in with behavior problems and you see them relatively quickly fall away when we provide this safe environment to hunt for a bit of chicken in one of the 20 or 40 or 50 boxes that are out there. There's no one that has seen that happen, has experienced that and not gone, oh my God. And it just so brings me back to my zoo days when we'd go, oh my God, like all we've done is take the food out of a silver tray and put it in a ball that flops around and food scatters, and suddenly we've influenced that animal's well-being substantially. So canine nosework is just phenomenal, and it's led me more and more to understand what's going on at a neurological level when, we talk about Panskeps, base emotional systems, and predominantly that seeking system to push dopamine, the level of dopamine in the brain. And it just, I can't say enough about it. And not only is it fantastic for the dogs, but it is also fantastic for anybody who wants to learn dog behavior and really animal behavior better, because it's a completely hands-off experience. So I might do a workshop and have a dog come in that, and this happened. This was actually one of the ones. Sometimes I feel like Phil McGraw going around doing these canine nosework workshops, because there's often tears. There's often like revelation. Is that the right word? Yes. To that we have this dog that can actually do something and can be seen by others. Not only the you're right, Quinny. Not only the owner as a dog of worth, because so many times we have dogs with behavioural problems and they can't go to the local dog park. Don't do that anyway, anybody. The local obedience club, right? They can't, because they're too much of a problem. They can't go to group classes. So we set up the environment, one dog in at a time. And there's this one dog that's in my head that I just want to share with you. And there's several stories like this that I could share. But it was a workshop that I did up Erin way. And the canine nosework workshops normally just run for half a day, so we can normally do them back to back in a day. Bit of lecture, working the dogs, bit of lecture of what just happened, and work the dogs again, sometimes 3 sessions with the dogs. And all it is, when I say a session, it's just, here's an environment for you, dog. We've made it safe. And there's some boxes here, and we make it easy at first. And basically, you can choose whether to hunt for this barbecue chicken, or you can do whatever you want to do. If you need to go and sniff around where other dogs have been, whatever you need to do to feel safe. And then usually once they've done that, they come and start playing the game. Anyway, there was this lovely lady who was just observing the morning session. And she was there really early when I was setting up, and I said, have you got your dog here today? And she said, oh, no. She said, you'd hate me if I brought my dog, because the dog would be, barking and da-da-da, and it's very scared, da-da-da. And I went, oh, okay, no worries. I said, well, it'll be really interesting for you to see what's going on with the dogs that are here, because quite frankly, they're the dogs that this activity is so gorgeous for? And she's like, all right. And there's no words to explain it. There's really not. So anyway, we did that. And at lunchtime, she said to me, I've just asked the host and there's room this afternoon. Would you mind if I went home and got my dog and we played this game with you? And I said, no, of course not. Anyway, long story short, the shepherd, I think, was about 10 or 11 years of age. And it was just so, it was just so freaking scared. It came in the room and I just said, just let her off lead and let her see what she wants to do. And she went and she was sniffing. The whole body carriage was, as you would expect, down and head down and shaking and exploring with her nose a lot, but in that hesitant way of like, I'm going to run back any second, going back and checking on the mum, da-da-da. And she just kept on orientating towards the place that she'd come in. So my read on that is I always think to myself, animals orientate towards a point of reinforcement. So that was her telling us she wanted out. And obviously, in absence of any other information, where you came in is where you get out, right? And I said, but in canine nose work, we really like to have the setup so that we've got an entry and an exit that are separate. So as we've got one dog going out, we can have another dog going in and there's no chance of them meeting, because quite often we have reactive dogs. It's one of the behavior problems that this really helps with. Anyway, so I said, look, she's going to follow you. Just walk down there, see if she follows you, and put her up back on the lead and show her that that's the way out. And I said, then I want you to bring her back in, see if she'll come back in. If not, that's fine, but see if you can bring her back in. And I was surprised to see her appear, a couple of minutes later. If she needs to sniff, if she needs to piddle out there, that's fine. But we'll just wait for you. We're going to leave it open. All the spectators are going to move, and we're just going to bring her back in. And she came back in. And the dog, and I had left that door that she went out open. And obviously she came in and she went straight back out again. And everybody laughed. And I'm like, frickin' bingo. Because what have I just said to that dog? You are not captive here. You can always go out. If you're telling us that's what you want. And so that was her go. Did the other dogs, had a little talk. When she came in the next time, she came in and went to the door, and I said to Mum, just ask her if she wants to go out. And she said, do you want to go? And the dog said, no, I just wanted to make sure the option was still on the table. And she went around, and she never got comfortable enough to eat the food, but she hunted for it, and she stuck to those boxes, and she went, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. And I went, that's great, that's a plus. Anyway, the third time, because I had to give her a third time because this dog was just so like making me so happy that finally after 10, 11 years, and the owner's crying, oh my gosh, she's, and the third time she came in, she went round and clocked the boxes. She never ate, but you know what happened, Ryan? She went up to her mum and she did this great big stretch. And she wagged her tail and she rolled on her back for a belly rub. And we're all bawling because while we say to the dog, there's chicken in boxes here if you want to hunt. And it's so easy for human beings to go. So the goal is for the chicken in the boxes to be gone by the time the dog leaves. That was the biggest success in the world, and the chicken was still there. It's about saying to this animal, you're free here to do what you need to do. And I've no doubt if it was a class, the dog would have come back and gone, let me hunt and let me show you how good I can do this. But it's helped me so much understand and watch and say to the animal, I think you want this, I'm going to give it to you, and then look at the behaviour that when I next see them to see if I have indeed chosen the reinforcer that they wanted. Because that's the thing, isn't it? That chicken in a box, 9 out of 10 dogs would go, toppest reinforcer you could ever give me, thank you very much. But for that dog in the place that she was at, it was like, it's there, I see it's there, but the best reinforcer that you can give me, or the best consequence I can have, I can't say if it's a reinforcer or not, right? Until I see what happens in the future. But I can say by watching that animal's body language, animals orientate towards a point of reinforcement. I think you want this, so let me see. So it really helps us as trainers to understand what reinforcement actually is. You can have the most amazing cheese from Switzerland in your pouch, and if you're throwing it down your dog's throat, you're just feeding your dog. You're not necessarily reinforcing behavior. It's not necessarily what the dog is saying, yes, I will have that. That's all about where they're orientating. So, the canine nose work is just the most fantastic thing to hit the dog world for dogs and for dog professionals, because it allows us to really start to learn about them in their world, as opposed to on a lead, as opposed to under verbal control. It's just them being them. It's such a wonderful thing. And look, there's lots of, we've just had, it's an interesting thing also, because nose work is really blowing out and becoming really popular in the dog world, and lots of classes are being offered. And I just really need to say, because as you can hear, I think I've said the word competition once or twice. I haven't said anything much about that. And heaps of people love the competition side, and I enjoy it, but nowhere near as much as what I enjoy this dumb act. Simple, free, pretty much, like, chickens are now $9 at Coles over here. So go and get your free boxes from Bunnings. Don't know what you have, but, if you've got Bunnings, go there. And the chicken, so it's cheap as chips for this incredible benefit. My love is really in the therapy of it, and that basic box game. I'm really trying to write a manual just for everybody of what I've learned, not for it to be the be all and end all, but from what I've learnt from working dogs, who we modify the game for them specifically to ensure that they get the most therapy out of it. But yeah, the whole nose work thing. There's people out there offering nose work classes that might not necessarily be as therapeutic, and this is really important for me to say, so don't cut it out. When editor, please. He's nodding. It's really important for me to say, not to diss anybody, but to just understand that like all dogs love nose work, but dogs that really need the therapy aspect of it, they might go to a nose work class that doesn't say, for instance, have all the dogs separate. They might be in a crate right down the end, and the dog that is working the search still works in with those other dogs and knows that they're down in the crate. For some reactive dogs, that's just too much. They're just not going to be able to cope with that. So in my classes, in any canine nose work class that you go to, that canine is a bit of a key there. They're the ones that the dog comes in one at a time, and the other dogs will either be crated in another room somewhere, or every dog is made to feel as comfortable as possible. Oftentimes people just keep them in the car when it's not their turn because they're comfy in there and that kind of thing. But that's really important to understand, because while most dogs will go to any nose work class and go, yippee, you've got to be joking. Like, they come in and they go, okay, what's this game? Okay, everybody's quiet and there's lots of people. Oh, it must be like a vet conference. Oh, shit. Oh, sorry, I had to swear. Because that's what they think. But then they realise what's happened. Yeah, write down your little time. God love him, he's writing down his time. But then they realise what it is and they're pulling their people in there. Can't remember why I got onto that. But anyway, the dogs that really need, like that shepherd, and dogs that are reactive to other dogs. I mean, my little Quinn, one of the Chihuahuas for Legally Blonde, he has had a very reactive past. Every time I talk about him, I think of Prince, because Prince went through that thing where he was the artist once called Prince, and then for a while he didn't have a name. I say, he was once reactive. And obviously Quinn's still got, like all dogs that, have that history, he could still be reactive if the antecedent set was right, if he felt like he needed to. But amongst a lot of other things, the counter conditioning programs and all that, the opportunity to go to canine nose work, to go in, to search for chicken in a box, to have that dopamine surge, to have that anticipation, all of that happen, and then to also go in and smell the smell of other dogs. It's that is like the most fundamental base place, as I realised, after seeing this, that we should start with counter conditioning with dogs that are reactive to other dogs. We should start with the olfaction, the smell of other dogs. So one of the things in my classes on the therapy stream that we do in the workshops is if we've got a reactive dog, we might say, okay, well, can we have some blankets from out of some people's cars that have other dogs' smells real strong on them? Have we got a situation where we could, if it's a class, could people leave an old T-shirt with their dogs in their dog's bedding, or if their dog sleeps with them, just bring your old nightshirt, so that there's a really strong smell of other dogs, so that we get the dog coming in and going, I know this game, the boxes are there, I feel good, but oh, there's a strong smell of another dog. Smell, other dog, other dog, other dog. Now I'm hunting, dopamine surge. So look at how that counter conditioning is working at with the sense that is most paramount for this species, as opposed to what we've always done, and I've done it for years too. Look at that dog. Okay, here's the food. You're in a situation where we're the ones that are visually, that have a primary sense visually, not the dogs. And the other thing, I know I'm taking up way too much time, Ryan, but the other thing that's so valuable, because we've basically I've started off playing around with, and when I say started off, I've been doing it for maybe 3 years now. When we do counter conditioning programs with dogs that are reactive on lead, and it normally is see the other dog have the food, there's instead of handing the dog the food, my guys now, I get people to scatter it. So we teach them, go find it at home, and we use the boxes and all that sorts of stuff, And then when we take it on the road, so the boxes, amongst other things, are a real strong cue, environmental cue for the dog that the search is on, right? So as soon as they see those boxes, they're in a situation where they go, oh my God, I get to hunt. So there's a dopamine surge. So a lot of people take the small boxes around and they go, oh, we're going to do some nose work here. But because if we've got a situation where the dog is reactive on lead, I want my people to have a verbal find it cue that's as strong in association with that dopamine surge and the hunting feeling as the boxes are for those who do it in class, and that's because we're going to take it on the road, right? So we have a situation where we get to take the dog out and they see another dog and it's like, oh, there's the other dog. The find it game's on. Go find it. And, we manipulate sort of where we show the dog to go and all that kind of stuff. And hey, it actually took me a year or two of doing this myself and actually getting information from other people for me to realize that there's all the value is there in terms of the seeking system being more activated and all that kind of stuff. So, we get a higher feel good associated with the monster. Does that make sense? Because I always sort of say to people, if you've got something that your dog or yourself or your budgie or whatever is uncomfortable about, decide where that is on a 1 to 10 scale. And if you've got a 9 out of 10 monster, you need to counter condition with a 9 out of 10 or really a 10 out of 10, not consequence, but stimuli, So let's say activity, right? So it needs to be, it can't be schmackos, it needs to be barbecued chicken. But then we can throw and sprinkle the barbecued chicken around so that it's not just about the barbecued chicken, but you also get to hunt for that barbecued chicken. So it's more of once we've established that association, like, whoa, I love this game. But the coolest thing is that took me a while to realise, because I'm a little thick, is that we're in a situation where many dogs, when you watch a well-socialised dog out there, one of the techniques that they use, as we all know, to diffuse a situation is sniffing. They'll I'm just going to sniff over here, I mean you no harm. So now I've got a situation where if we see a monster dog come along and my little Quinny is like, oh, I don't like that, and we're still, okay, so I go find it, and he knows that, oh, great, the monster made the sniff happen again. instead of what we used to do, I need you to make sure you see the other dog so that you know that that's what made the food come. So we're saying to the dog at hand, our dog, look at the dog, at least orientate towards the dog so I know that I'm not going to poison the food. You know, how often we've gone, oh, there's another dog coming, let me get the food out, and the dog goes, where's the other dog? Because we've said to the dog, I only get food out of my pouch when there's a monster around, so every time I get food out of my pouch, look for the monster. I mean, we've all done that, right? But now I'm in a situation where I say that equals go sniff. So I get to the point where the dog says, oh, I see a monster, I'm going to go sniff over here. And so if that other dog, the monster, that's not his fault, by the way, the monster is over there and he is thinking to himself, oh, thank God that dog didn't look at me, because I would have had to have gone off, because I just don't like other dogs looking at me, and I just do that. And my person, instead of giving me a bit of food when dogs look at me and I look back at them, jerks my collar and tells me, don't do that, don't dare. And so now I've got my dog saying to the other dog, I mean you no harm, in dog speak, right? Because he's going to sniff. And so that other dog can go, oh, thank God. Instead of, it made me realize how many times have I been out with people and we've seen another dog and we go, okay, here's one coming up. And I say, just wait until our dog looks at, just so that we know. We just need to know that he sensed the other dog is there, so he knows that is the reason the food's coming. And suddenly the other dog, the monster, goes, don't look at me, I'll get jerked, look what's and so then the other dog has done that, and so our dog that we're trying so hard to keep under threshold goes, me too, rah, and now he's over threshold. So I really love where this could take us, and I'm only at the beginning of it, and I give this to everybody out there who's got a better brain at this than I have, to say, okay, let's really look at this sort of aspect or opportunity that we have to improve even more the programs, the counter conditioning programs that we're doing with dogs out there and other animals. But you know what I mean? It was a big eye opener for me. So, and I have to say, people who are utilizing the go find it as opposed to here's a bit of food out on their walks with their reactive dog, continue to get in contact with me if they're not my client and go, holy shit, it just is it is improved so much. It improves so much more quickly. I've been battling this for a while, and it's really this has helped us turn a corner. So yay. Is that enough?
Peter, that was beautiful.
I'm so sorry.
No, that was beautiful. I've got a little as you were talking there, I drew a picture of a queen, because Teresa McEwen talks about passion talking, and you have just taken the title as the queen of passion talking. I absolutely love that. It was the question was, everyone listening, can you tell us about yourself and where people can go to find out more information? That was 40 minutes ago. I love that.
Have we done that?
It's beautiful.
And I've got a website.
I'm being super sincere here. I absolutely love that. That was
so
beautiful.
Funny. Yeah, I've got a website, Animal Training Solutions, and I do my best to keep it updated and stuff. I also have Canine Central, but basically, yeah, there's stuff out there. I must admit, I'm not as good at my website, and that people can definitely get in contact with me there, but I'm not as good as updating stuff as I am just on my Facebook page, because so often, like we just saw at the beginning of this our time together, with Phoebes going, this is wrong, and normally we're this, and I'm this is not the normal, and normally at this time of the day we're going for a walk, and I don't care about your pig's ear and all that kind of stuff. We're learning that's for me where real understanding as a trainer happens, when we can be aware of what's going on and why it's going on and what's happened there. And so often I'll do a training session, or I'll be out with my animals, and I'll just video something, and I'll just chuck it up on Facebook, and it's like, just look at what happened here, guys. My interpretation is this. Has anybody else got a different interpretation? But this this is where it is, right? This is where it is every day for these animals. And the best that I can do is try to match their understanding and awareness, that's the thing, of consequences, behaviour, antecedents, what can I expect here from these animals. So, definitely Animal Training Solutions is the way to go if you want to get in contact with me. Not as important as all the stuff I've learned, obviously.
Well, we can see animals orientate themselves towards reinforcement, right? So I asked you a question about your website. And
yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Which, as I was saying, I think is absolutely beautiful. And with every podcast that I record, you've left me wanting to learn so much more.
Yeah, I bet.
The more we learn, the less we know is a mantra.
Behavior is incredible, isn't it? Behavior is the most incredible thing. And I think to myself, so often I look at the amount of opportunities new trainers have out there to learn now. Like, there's other people, web, what are they called? Seminars and oh my God. And, when I was starting, I was on a modem, so and then you'd hear beep beep. I'm sorry, damn, because all I had, and I loved it, and I lived there, was the Click L list. There was Karen Pryor, there was Gary Wilkes, there was Bob Bailey, there was Kathy Sadeo. There were so many people there trying to work all this out. But I think to myself, oh my gosh, how amazing is it for new trainers coming up? But here's the other thing. It's also a potential minefield, because there's lots of people out there who can now do a website in an afternoon, have a Facebook page, and make it look really specky, but you just got to go back to the science. While there's neuroscience, while there's all of these other things that now can influence, and we can learn so easily, that do influence behaviour, unless you go back to a good, solid grounding and belief of the ABCs, that's your foundation. You've got to make sure that you really understand and you look at and you analyse behaviour first and foremost from that point of view. All the other things are interesting and valuable, definitely. I mean, the whole thing about canine nose work, it really helped me to understand what was going on when I delved into the neurosciences a little bit more. But when it comes back to it, I can't see the dopamine surge. I just read the studies and look at the behaviour to say, yes, this dog is enjoying itself, it's wagging its tail, its body's loose, it's engaged, it's orientating towards the boxes or the odour or the room that we do it in. Animals orientate towards the reinforcement. So I always am going back to the ABC. So all of you youngsters out there, just remember that you've got this plethora of incredible information to fuel your journey. But please spend the time and the effort understanding the science of applied behavioural analysis, because that if you don't have that, it's like a house. You can build this most beautiful house, but if your foundation's crap, it'll all fall down eventually. So go there. ABCs.
That is potentially the most exciting thing I've ever heard anyone say on this podcast.
We've all said it. I just say it because I've just finished my cup of coffee, with a bit more oomph maybe than others. But we're all saying it, ABCs. Damn you, Susan Friedman. ABCs. And I say that with love, everybody. I love her. I adore that woman, as we all should. If we're interested in this wonderful journey with these animals, she's the queen. She is the queen.
So I love that, because you answered all of the questions and I didn't even have to answer them. We talked about what comes first, emotions or behaviour.
Emotions.
And you shared your beautiful story about your Chihuahua, and potentially we'll share that video in the
yes,
podcast.
100%. 100%.
I've seen that video. I've watched it on your website, I think, is where I saw it. I've seen it somewhere, but it is beautiful.
Yeah.
We talked about choice and control with regards to your example of your dog being able to exit the area where you're doing your canine nose work. And we talked about canine nose work in great detail. Yeah. One thing, for everyone listening out there, because I'm sure all of the dog nerds and the zoo nerds and horse nerds who are going, I've got to make sure that I'm giving my species the appropriate enrichment for its taxa. where can people who want to get more into canine nosework, and you mentioned the differences between canine nosework and other noseworks there.
Yes. Well, because we're in the Southern Hemisphere, I will talk to you about the ACSW, which is the arm of nosework in Australia that predominantly deals with the trials and the sanctioned events and that kind of thing. So it's more the competition. But on that page, ACSW, and I think if they go to my site, Canine Central, but just put in Peta Clarke, or go to Animal Training Solutions and you can go to Canine Central from there. I've got a link to the page on the ACSW that has a list of certified instructors. So one of the founders in America, the amazing Jill Marie O'Brien, who I want to be in the pocket of for the rest of my life and just listen to her, she's come over twice now and given us 4-day intensives to help us understand the importance of their philosophy of giving the dog choice, control, that this is the dog's game, all of those sorts of things. There's a list of people who have been through that and who have got what's called their CNWI, Canine Nosework Instructor, or their ANWI, which is what I am because I'm not good at getting paperwork in, Associate Nosework Instructor. Here's the easiest way to do it. The easiest way to do it is to, if you're interested, do a little bit of a search around your area, and if there's someone who's doing nose work or scent work, they might be great. They just might not be able to call it canine nose work because they've not gone through the course, but they might be using all of the philosophy and all of that kind of thing, where the dog is in control, and that will be therapeutic for the dog. And my thing is, whether it's nose work classes or dog training classes or cat training classes or bird training classes, you ring up that person, you have a chat, and you say, can I come and watch a class? That's the thing for me. Realistically, anybody who's got any real desire to share and help and enjoy this amazing experience that you and I and everyone out there who's listening knows we can have with these animals, as opposed to just sit, stay, that we can be on this journey with them. They should welcome you with open arms to come and sit in on a class, or at least see a lesson that they give, maybe with a private or something like that. So that's what I would suggest. And look, quite frankly, it is canine nosework is a very organic class, and so it's one of, and what I mean by that is there's probably people who would hate my approach because this is what I'm like. Look at what happened there, and there might be people who would prefer a different approach, and so it's that kind of thing as well. Make sure you've got a feel for the instructor, because it really is at its foundation a therapy, so it brings out a lot of stuff in the dogs and in the people, I must admit, because it should become a very safe environment for the people as well. And I'm just so lucky to be someone who can help facilitate that in both species, both the humans and the dogs, because we all need it. I think we spoke about this when we chatted about what we were going to chat about and I know you're going to ask this question about where I want to see animal training going in the future.
Answer it. Go.
Because and it really, the joy that so many of us get from working with animals, dogs, all animals, and seeing their welfare improve and seeing their what's the word, their self-confidence improve, and I know it's sort of not really kosher still to talk about that, but I remember when we would get a new bird into the bird show, and it had been through the vets, and it was deemed unreleasable, but it was an option to keep it and have it fly in the show and for us to look after it. You would see these birds come down with shit feathering because they weren't preening anymore, they weren't bathing. I'm thinking particularly of an eagle that I had the utmost pleasure in learning from. And, you know, they've been at a vet where the most important thing for the vet is to keep them physically well. I've got to make sure that, you know, we catch you up every day and look at that wound and clean it and rebandage it and make sure you get your antibiotics and all of that. And in the process, the control, that any sort of control that they have over the outcomes of their life is taken away from those birds or that animal, you know, insert species here, right? And so they come down to the show and they're like, why would I bother? Why? I can only say they're depressed, you know. You can only say that they're not looking after themselves anymore. They're just like, shit just happens to me and I just deal with it, right? And nothing I do, no matter how fierce I act or how much I try to fly away, nothing works. So I just got to suck it up, and that's just my life. And they get to our world and we go, oh, you're worried about us coming in? I saw your feathers slick. Okay, we'll just put the food here and we'll go away. And suddenly we give them back all of this control, right? And you see them come alive with themselves again. You see them, oh my God, I can control situations here. Maybe not all of them, but some. And that is, you know, that is the paramount, that is the foundation of all positive reinforcement training. Because every single one of us finds control of our environment to be able to manipulate our environment to our liking, the way the reinforcing, right? It's about survival. And I think we so often forget that with human beings. It's so easy with human beings. And I fought this in myself. I fought it, but I kept fighting it because I knew what I was seeing with the dogs and the birds and the seals and all the other animals. I knew what I was seeing because of how I was interacting with them. I knew that it was the same for people. So I know that people react aggressively and not hit you in the face sometimes, but that passive aggressive, that horrendous crap that we can sometimes say to people. Even things like when someone's got a gorgeous story and the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, well, my dog. It's like, I didn't even hear you. You're like that. Like, we can so easily push each other down and tell each other that we don't matter, right? And by the most important thing for us is to give control, to give that understanding that you do matter. Whether it's a Ryan in front of me on the computer in New Zealand, or if it's a Quinny here, Chihuahua, human, cat, it doesn't matter. To say to an animal that you are important and you have value, and I'll give you as much choice and control here as possible, is paramount. And so for me to be able to not only do that for dogs, but to be able to make a human being feel better about themselves, there is nothing better. There is absolutely nothing better. To treat someone with kindness, even though you might be well within your right to be a turd, you know, and to say, well, blah, 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 you know, and to be defensive yourself. It's just the most unnecessary thing in the world. And a story that I'll end with, because I know we've got to end, even though we could go on for a while. There's so many again, but like that beautiful shepherd that I spoke of, just the beginning of this year, we were doing our second canine nose work workshop down in Tasmania, where, let me say, it was like 40 degrees. It was the ridiculous, just so stupid. And up in Sydney, while I was in Tasmania, it was like 32. I'm in Tasmania, it's 40 degrees. Anyway, and most of the people who had come to the first day had been before, but there were 3 people who hadn't. So because there was only 3, I sort of went round and just got a bit of information about, have they done any scent work, da-da-da. And I was kind of, the guy who I kept till last, because everything about his body language was not appealing and not inviting and not making me feel comfortable. So not only do we orientate to reinforcement as animals, we avoid punishment like the plague, right? So anyway, I got to him, and his reason for coming was that his partner, his wife, I can't remember, was overdoing something with some gun dog folk who were at the same facility during that weekend. And basically, you know, this is a man who had done amazing work with and had amazing experiences all around the world as a professional detection dog handler. And he had in his day been just as nerdy and as in love with learning about it, that particular aspect of dog work, as we are about what we are in love with as far as animal training goes. And it was just so wonderful for me to be able to once again be reminded that had I, which I didn't, and I was lucky because I had to push it down, I'll be honest, I wanted to say, well, just go away then, don't be here, don't make my life harder than what it has to, but I didn't. And I said to him at the beginning, okay, well, this would be really interesting to get your take on this because this is different, So, and long story short, we ended up being able to have a wonderful time together with me sort of asking him to tell us a little bit about his experience and which was all around the world, Canada, the US, over in Europe, learning from all these detection dog people. And I was able to incorporate that and the differences in the way that they train their dogs, which is much more an obedience style introduction to detection work than what we do with the therapy with canine nose work. And his whole demeanour changed, of course, because I said to him, you're worthy, you're completely worthy and you're welcome and you're safe here. And so you can imagine me at the end of it when he came up and he said, that was really interesting, that was good, I can see some, it's just a completely different way of doing stuff and reasons for doing stuff. And I said, yeah, and thank you for your input and blah, blah, blah. And I said, have you thought about doing some workshops down here? Because, you've got amazing stories. It's really interesting. And he sort of went back into his shell a little bit. He walked with a very defined limp and he was on a cane, and he said that no point, love, the doctors have pretty much given me another 4 years before I'll be on machines to keep me alive because I've got muscle degeneration and a disease that's will take me out. And off he went. I did my best to hold myself together, and I just thought, holy hell, thank God I had enough nous about me to show him that he's worthy, to show him that he's valuable, because obviously he's had a lot taken from him over the past short while. So it's stories like that, and I'm no saint, none of us are. I have people who I have to ring up my best friend and bitch about. But when I'm present with an animal, I want to be as present and as supportive as I can be. So I think that's where I want us all to go. It sounds trite, I know that, but it's not. It is the most powerful, valuable thing that any of us can do for anybody else, regardless of the body that we come in, right? Regardless of the species that we are on this planet. So yeah, that's where I'd love it to go. Just for us all to be a little bit more aware of the influence and the power that we have over the human being that's in front of us, not just the elephant, the seal, the bird, the dog, the cat, etc., etc.
That was a beautiful story, Peter. Thanks for sharing. Such an
Pleasure.
important reminder.
Pleasure. Really is. It really is. And to me also, like I said, I don't want anybody to think, oh, she's so like high and mighty. Oh no. I could tell you the story where I stuffed up someone's day as well, but that'll be the behind the scenes podcast, Ryan. But we all do it. We're all human. We're all human. We just got to try to be better. That's all.
But you just never know. I mean, it's like working with animals. You're placing a label on that human if you judge him before you know.
Yep.
That he's got 4 years until he...
Yep. We just never know. And it's we all know how powerful this is to make or break. But we often with humans go, well, you should know better. You shouldn't be talking to her like that. Well, there might be a reason why she's talking to you, to the person like that or to you like that. In the same way that there might be a reason that the tigers who's just been moved from one facility to another is growling and hissing at you from the corner, right? Like that's the bottom line. So yeah, as much as we can.
Hey, thank you so much for that, Peter. We will, just looking at the time, wrap up, I think, there. It's actually gone perfectly. We're perfectly on time, I think, with regards to standard episodes. Well timed from us. Well done.
Great. Awesome.
That was great. Hey, from myself and on behalf of everyone listening, we really appreciate it. As I said at the start, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And we do, of course, really appreciate all of you tuning in today as well. If you have enjoyed this episode and you were interested in carrying on the conversation about working with our animals in the most positive, funnest, choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. So head on over to www.animaltrainingacademy.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. There's something there for absolutely everyone, and we're looking forward to having you join the tribe. That's it for this episode, though. We're going to wrap it up there. Thanks again so much for listening, everyone. You'll hear from us again soon.